I want to talk a little bit about the climate and what's happening in the community right now. Definitely, you see it everywhere. It's taking its toll on a lot of people, and many times for very different reasons. We have heard a lot from leaders in local law enforcement who say that they are frankly navigating new territory here. So joining me now is Apple Valley Police Chief Nick Francis. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. So recently, a couple of days ago, you had put out a social media post. It was thoughtful. You could tell you put a lot of thought into this when you sent it out. One of the things you did was sort of compare the current state of immigration enforcement and the political responses to a kind of a bitter divorce among parents. I'm curious what the reaction has been like.
For the most part, pretty relatable. And so the reason I put it out is not to convince someone one way or the other that they needed to feel this way. It is a reflection of what I have heard from all sorts of community members, all sorts of stakeholders, all sorts of department members, all sorts of fellow law enforcement officers. So the intent was to put it into a frame where people can relate to. Overwhelmingly, a lot of the responses we've got, we've got emails back, we've gotten a lot of responses on the post itself, but more importantly, just out in the community, talking to community members all the time. It seems that there's a lot of people that can relate. So just giving folks the opportunity to have the words describing what's going on and a situation that they might be able to relate to is kind of the purpose of putting it out.
Yeah, and just really quickly for those who haven't seen the post, there's the part where you say the same advice officers have given people trapped in an emotional separation or custody dispute, that you've given during your 25 years in law enforcement. So what is that advice?
Yeah, none of us are going through this alone, and so. Isolation, we know through work in mental health and crisis response, isolation really is bad for people when they are in times of stress. So just not isolating yourself. There's a lot of other people that feel the same way, and staying connected with family and friends is a healthy outlet. Having a safety plan, and again, this is things that we're talking. Again, I just used the reference to telling kids in a household that's kind of volatile and they really don't have a ton of control over that volatility, is just know when your stress level is getting to the point where it's a breaking point. And for those of us adults that are in these stressful situations, it's the same thing. Kind of recognize what your limits are and what you can do to maybe take a step back or take a breath and decompress a little bit. Resources are abundant all over, and I'm reaching out specifically to folks in Apple Valley and Dakota County, but there's food resources, there's mental health resources, there's spiritual guidance. There's a whole community out there that I know of that is willing to help people during times of need. And then just deciding what makes you feel safe. In the end, it's safety. In each individual, that's a spectrum. You feel less safe to more safe, and so when you are on that spectrum, it's finding kind of that middle ground where you do feel safe enough to kind of continue with what's going on. And if you're at home and you feel most safe at home, that's great too. But just knowing kind of what makes you safe and deciding to making decisions to put that in place.
And Chief, when it comes to federal immigration enforcement operations, specifically in Apple Valley, do you want to just sort of reiterate to folks the role of local PD or lack thereof, and then also what are you seeing on the ground?
Sure, we're seeing pretty sustained operations. They're very quick, so I won't say every single day, but most days we are hearing from our community that ICE is somewhere in the community. Whether they're making arrests, whether they're passing through, whether they're in a parking lot. So we are seeing that activity. To my knowledge, our officers have yet to get to a scene and be involved with any type of ICE activity. And to some extent, that's by design by the federal agents are not really sharing that information and putting out there ahead of time where they're going and who they're after. And so we're seeing that. Kind of in suburbia, we don't necessarily have large groups that are following, but we certainly get calls from people that are monitoring the activity and letting us know. I see that as a good thing. I see it if people are calling the local law enforcement agency, I see that as there is at least a level of trust with the local law enforcement agency. And again, as you said, there isn't a ton we can do to assist. We can get there, we can help document. If someone calls who had first-hand knowledge of an incident with ICE and they are unsatisfied with that encounter, we can provide them the information to make that complaint to ICE at the local level. And so I think there's reasonable expectations that the public has that law enforcement is there to help. There's also unreasonable expectations that some members of the public have that law enforcement is their local law enforcement can insert ourselves into that operation, that we can arrest ICE agents or block them from doing their work. And that's just, unfortunately, that's unrealistic, and that's not a situation we can step into. But we're always there. We're in our community. No matter what the call is, we will respond and do whatever we can. Sometimes it's just having a conversation. And again, as the kind of the head of this department, speaking to my agency and speaking to the community with this letter, sometimes that's what we can is talk and have civil conversations, and also maybe put word out that if people think this is politically motivated, it's our politicians that need to kind of navigate and get us out of it.
Yeah, we've heard that from a lot of different police chiefs. I think it was Booker Hodges in Bloomington who said the other day, politics and policing don't mix, and so here we are. But we appreciate your time, Chief. Thank you for that. And if you want to check out the post, I believe it's on Facebook, is where I think I saw it, on Apple Valley Police Facebook page. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks for having me. Have
You
a great
bet.
day.
All right, take care.